The family of Captain Sir Tom Moore is criticised by the Charity Commission for personally profiting from the foundation set up in his name.
The family of Captain Sir Tom Moore damaged public trust in charities by refusing to donate any of the £1.4 million they received from his book deal, according to a watchdog inquiry.
A highly critical report from the Charity Commission says the war veteran's daughter, Hannah Ingram Moore, and her husband, Colin, repeatedly benefited, it says, from the foundation set up in his name.
The book deal, a personal appearance and plans for a spa complex have all been criticised by the charity regulator. It found there were repeated instances of a blurring of boundaries between private and charitable interests.
And it concluded their actions amounted to misconduct, mismanagement, or both.
The Ingram Moores have said this report has treated them unfairly. The process was unjust and excessive. The Charity Commission had a predetermined agenda. That is what they have said.
Well, let's speak now to David Holdsworth, the Chief Executive of the Charity Commission. A good morning to you.
Morning.
This leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth because there was such a national affection for Tom Moore.
I think the public will be rightly feeling misled. I think everyone got behind Captain Sir Tom. I think we all remember during the pandemic the smile he brought to our face, reminding us what service to others can actually achieve.
Mismanagement and misconduct are two things. Somebody could say, I got that wrong because I was busy, I wasn't mindful of the situation. Misconduct means you did it on purpose.
So I think what we have found is there was a pattern of behaviour and there was a consistent blurring of the lines between private benefit of the Ingram Moores and the interests of the charity, and they simply weren't managed.
Have you been able to put a number, a figure, on how much the family benefited?
So as we set out in the report and the public can read, there was a £1.4 million book deal. Our view was, because of the marketing around that, because of Captain Sir Tom's own words in the prologue that it would benefit the foundation, the public would rightly have expected some of that money to go to the charity. It didn't. There was also an £18,000 payment to Mrs Ingram Moore for attendance at an award ceremony. The charity only got a £2,000 donation. Now, the trustees were unaware of that deal and agreement. If they had been, they could have perhaps negotiated a better deal for the charity.
Can I ask you to go one step back? You mentioned the £1.4 million book deal, which is a huge sum of money. So can I just get clarity on that? None of that money, the entirety of that money, your commission says, went to the family and not to the charity, the entirety?
That's correct. There was a second agreement whereby £1 from every book sold went to the charity. That was a separate agreement. That sent £17,000 to the charity. But that first agreement for £1.4 million, none of that went to the charity.
Can we just give the response from the Ingram Moores to you? Because Mandy says that £18,000, that was time in her own time, that payment was for. And the family also say they never took a penny from public donations when Sir Tom raised millions for the NHS. They think it's very painful, they say, that people will conflate this.
So we're really clear in the report that initial £39 million that everyone contributed to when Captain Sir Tom did that amazing fundraising event during the pandemic, all of that went to NHS Charities Together. This was about the charity subsequently set up in his name. And as for the £18,000, what we would say is the charity's logo was used as part of the marketing for those awards. And as part of the agreement, there was a requirement for the charity to publicise and to use its social marketing and social media.
I just want to give you some more of what you'll have seen, these comments from the family, Captain Sir Tom's family, about you. They have said that what's happened is unfair and unjust. They say you've used selective storytelling. They say that a credible regulatory body would provide the full truth rather than misrepresenting and conflating facts and timelines that align with what they say was a predetermined agenda. The implication there is clear. It's explicit, isn't it? That you went in there thinking you already knew the story.
So we're a fair, independent regulator. We follow the evidence, and we are a law-based regulator. The public would rightly expect us to be robust. We've gone in, the report sets out our evidence and findings in detail, and at the end of the day, the Ingram Moores did have a right of appeal against this, and they chose not to exercise it.
Can you just explain to people where this sits now. Your work is done, effectively. Do you have dealings? Is it within your scope to talk to the authorities, as in the police, as to whether there should be any further action? How does that work?
So what we didn't find was that this crossed the criminal threshold. So if we do find it passes a criminal test, we obviously refer it to the police. In this instance, what we're not saying is that there was a criminal aspect to this.
David, could you reassure people watching this morning, because I know many of our viewers will be watching this and thinking, if we cannot trust the brand Sir Tom Moore, what charity can we trust? And that's unsettling for people. We're a nation of charity givers.
What I would say is there's 170,000 charities in England and Wales doing great work day in, day out. What this does show is, as the regulator, when it does go wrong, on those rare occasions, we're there to step in and we're there to take action. So I'd reassure the public, as the regulator, we step in, be confident in donating to charities.
Can I ask you one other question, which is that many people are aware that the family, and indeed Sir Tom himself, they were overwhelmed in that moment in time. I think everyone watching was kind of overwhelmed by the reaction. Did that have any bearing on how you treat them in terms of something extraordinary happening to people that they, you know, that runs out of control?
Yeah, we always take a proportionate approach. So we look at the evidence, we look at the circumstances. In this case, as part of the registration and application process, part of what we took into account was the advice we gave the Ingram Moores when setting up the charity, the fact they had independent legal advice at the time. All of that is taken into account when we look at these events.
Very interesting. Thank you for your time this morning. That's David Holdsworth, who is from the Charity Commission. Thank you.